Right. Thank you and everyone for joining the Internet of Value Foundation, New York, episode 129. I hope everyone who listens to this information finds it as valuable as I know I do every single day. The diverse amount of mindsets and perspectives that I get to have join me in this conversation in this space. And 808, thank you, man, for joining so quickly. I love it. We spoke about you joining yesterday, and boom, you're the first one in the space. So feel free to come up if you want to. Give me a moment. I'm going to go grab some content as well. But if you want to come up, you can just start speaking if you do. All right, welcome up, 808. Just grab two little things. They're just little tidbits
Oh,
about.
can you hear me?
Yes, sir. I hear you now.
Aloha, aloha, guys. Well, I'm waiting for my truck to getting its brakes changed and some other things. But yeah,
Oh, very cool, and also very important. Um, It's a little hard to hear you on my end, just like you're a little farther away. But I still heard what you said.
yeah. So I was talking a little soft.
Forgive me there. We're just taking a bite of pasta. So realigning with the conversation that we had yesterday and where we kind of finished off, and we were talking about different things that we like to eat from a health perspective, and how important health and wellness are. So I just kept the titles in line. It's not something we generally talk about, but I think it's going to be a fun conversation, even if it's a little quick one that we have today. I know possibly health and talking about food structures and substances that we intake into our body is not what most people want to talk about, and it's unfortunate because it's very important, and it's it does align with the structure of maybe why Western civilization is exactly in the particular predicament that we are in at the moment, and so that could be addressed from a sociological means, but I posted two different things up top, and I really like that there was also a context notes from the ex police. So it's pretty cool that even in a small study, right, that was done, which was factually proven that it was an actual study that was done from the context of that little comment. Um, that even in just 23 people, which I'm a strong believer in. If you or anybody in this space, right, were to go out and you, if you live in Western civilization and pretty much anywhere in the world, unfortunately, if you were to go test your blood on a very low part per million structure of measurement, you would find microplastics inside of your blood. And so this particular study that was a test for testicles for men, and 23 out of
I
23.
always find that those studies very interesting. So the same thing can be said for metal, which we know metal as a natural byproduct of our environment. Yeah, like we have certain metals within us, zinc, um, a lot of these different types at the most subatomic level, just like with microplastics. Oh, and but the ones you're talking about is much different than the ones that like we see every day kind of thing, which just always opens up doors to other conversations, which is very important. Understanding perspectives of one's positioning when they're doing certain studies, like how you just was sharing and how they had the footnotes on here of when they're doing this study, it wasn't on a worldwide scale. It was on a scale to where it was done only for a specific group, or even some of those small studies still hold some very strong factual evidence to prove a lot of these things, which is just a foundation to start on a bigger scale kind of thing. So it starts small, and then with enough information to progress, it can get larger. But sometimes a lot of these small studies are really diminished because they don't want a lot of these studies to go forth and to prove certain things. Like how we studied using the moon phases to grow plants, which my ancestors have been doing for thousands of years, planting them on certain nights of the moon gave a different effect to it. And we have factual evidence of that where we're actually relearning a lot of it, to the point where it's being done to help farmers here in Hawaii or wherever in the world where they're at, to kind of use these studies to help them with their own growing. Because it's crazy how when you get into that very specifics of planting on certain nights, because some crops needs to stretch to be a little larger, or some crops don't need that, to even aerating the soil on certain times. It's very specific and very wild, the effects of these things happening. And it also, again, based on perspectives. What I do here in Hawaii won't hold true to what you do in your part of the world, because what your part of the world is different. Different applications and how it's applied needs to be applied differently. It's not going to be the same of how I apply it here. Just like with these studies. Interesting.
I couldn't agree more. If there was a study that came out that 23 million out of 23 million individuals had microplastics in their blood at a high parts per million count, it would be something that would be really detrimental and scary, probably for too many people. So
Man, that would be a wild scenario to see if on it on that level. Now, when we're talking about that type of level, that is some mass level to where what environment would we be in? What type of living environment or quality of life will we have if it gets to that level, and the impact that it has on just not our own ecosystem but our ecosystem within ourselves. It's wild.
it really is, because the particular, right, plastics, talking about phthalates, they're coined forever chemicals, right? Because the material takes millennia to degrade into anything that is typically able for an organic environment to break it down. So that, yeah, but then we could go to things like technology that we have in these new skills and tool sets of understanding, starting to be aware of this stuff, and methodologies on how we can produce an environment, an ecosystem, which enriches us, and if it is a change of environment for us, part of that is that adaptation, the evolution of our species. And I think in some degrees we've been forced into it because of that lack of regulation over the overuse or overabundance of this scoring of this particular types of materials. What are your thoughts?
So I was going into deep thought because you said something that kind of triggered. but it's not the word. 'Cause I was thinking about phytates. It's the phytic acid, which is a naturally occurring compound found in plant seeds, which they use to store phosphorus in their plant tissues. Um, I don't know where I was going with this, but I just had that thought in my mind because they're similar in the sense of their bioavailability. Yeah, my mind is not at the moment right here.
No, no, you're right. There are many and I should say we're starting to get to that point where there are biodegradable plastics that are starting to be used, and they don't have that same BPA BPS composure typically, and so that, yeah, that is super cool. Downside is like products that are put in them have a much quicker expiration date. I think that's a plus side because it makes you want to use the product, whatever it is, and so it's not sitting around. So it's not something that needs preservatives to make it last for a long time in a shelf life.
I forgot who was doing it, but this guy created a way to use plastic waste to create fuel, which to me is very wild because from these plastics there is energy. Where there even when burning waste, you can create fuel from different burnings of waste. With the plastic problem we have around the world, we can use um plastic to create energy, which a guy actually created a way to make fuel, which we can use as gas of, though it's unfiltered, it's still yet at that level. You just have to filter it and clean it out, and it can be clean gas, which is wild that you can do that. But then we have been doing these things for a very long time. You can biofuel. Where did that come from? Wild, yeah.
It is, and thinking about repurposing. You're right. India was a huge buyer of plastic bottles and still is, and they built their entire road system out of reused plastic bottles. It's actually really interesting, and there's particular devices that have been built that are able to do this. So it's, yeah, I totally think that's definitely one part of it when we think about technology and this advancement of skills in the forms of these external tool sets, you know, not to say everything is lost and should be forgotten, right? It's gotten us to this point of awareness and this inflection point where I think it'll allow us also to want to progressively, exponentially increase that flywheel effect for technology itself to develop and these tool sets to develop because we really need them, in my particular
It's
opinion.
crazy because the tool sets we develop and are using now, like how I always shared, is it's showing how our ancestors as a collective was very knowledgeable about the things that they were able to achieve. That's why I was always at odds as to why people didn't really believe the Egyptians could build pyramids when they understood geometry, Pythagorean theorem around those days. They're the ones that taught the Greeks philosophy and mathematics. Then you got the Asians, the Chinese, who were able to break down minerals to how we see the periodic table today. They already had that knowledge. But then you have these Western ideologies that came in and really kind of molded it the way to how they believe and how they perceived it, their perspectives, which facts is in the history books. Facts is there, but not in the history books we see today. That's what I always say. It's something where it's a multifaceted approach where we need to come with an open mind and getting history from all parts of the world. Not just with my own ancestors, all of them, and it's at different levels to where we can see from then till now how much of the knowledge that kind of had been diminished, like how we're sharing of using the moon. That's something that we've been relearning by practicing these things and putting action to those words that was set forth and left by our ancestors. How we navigated, how they navigated, how we plant. A lot of that is really showing how they manage stormwater runoffs that was achieved a long time ago, and we still have problems of that here today. Like an example is Waikiki, a place where it's built on marshland. Every heavy flooding, heavy rain over there floods heavily. And it's because the system of where they control a lot of these stormwater runoffs, our drains, ain't efficient. But where our ancestors were able to create a system that managed it very well. Not just managed it, it helped extract, like how I was sharing, how the different levels of terraces extracted soil. That heavy soil that went into the ocean kind of damaged the ecosystem there, but with the Ahupua'a system with the different RYs, the local Icalos, it extracted a lot of those stormwater runoffs when those times would come, and those soil sediments would settle in these areas, which was also houses for fish that would spawn upstream. So it was a whole ecosystem, and not just with that's just one area of demographic that showed the power of how this indigenous knowledge helped within an island structure. Then you got other structures that came about, say the Incas, high elevations. What did they grow up there? How they were able to grow it? To even how the Indians were there, a lot of them, well, I'll go to the Mayans and the Aztecs, how they aerated and created their own systems. To the Egyptians, they created raised waterways to help them water their plants and fields. In where? One of the most desolate places in the world. And these are knowledge that they've gained through observation, through studies, through thousands of years for them being on Earth, studying and studying, and learning, going through trials and tribulations. It gave us a strong foundation, which we today diminish, which is sad because to me, the diminishing of that knowledge really kind of held back our ability to innovate even further than we are today, which the technology we're using today is actually trying to show proof of what they already knew from before. It's crazy.
I couldn't agree more, and it was a lot of information and a lot of great points that I wanted to build off of, right? Because I thought first and foremost, I think you highlighted why the internet is such an integral tool to bind these efficiencies from the past to the present and into the future, right? Without that tool of this distribution of information from these World Wide Web sources, right? This web, we may have not been able to obtain the exact amount of information we have. I mean, we're so blessed to be in this moment of time to at least have those tool sets. Um, and I couldn't agree more. Right? This really, in my opinion, of course, you could even go back all the way to the 1600s, where kind of Western medicine kind of started to originate. But really in the 1900s, 1918 in particular, right, with the Rockefeller Association went out and basically changed the entire landscape of medical and industrial processes. And they were
Well,
the most
so
pioneers.
when you come to that era, what you're talking about is not just that whole that it's so much. Because if you look through the history of not just that area, you look at the world history, a lot happened within the 1800s and 1900s. My through my history, my culture, our monarchy got overthrown. Um, with the Spanish War happened during those times. World wars happened during those times. Supply chain management changed drastically. When they took over Hawaii, they controlled a central figure part in the Pacific, which allowed supply chains across the United States, South America, in the Pacific. People didn't have to go down and around Brazil or up and above to the dangerous areas or through the Panama Canal, which wasn't even constructed yet. So they were able to cross trade and control a lot of the trades and shipping routes that was along in the Pacific to the Asias and to the South Americas and all over. So a lot of change happened at that in that era from housing on medical, educational, financial, how a lot of it's crazy. And then you see the ripple effects from it pushing from its predecessors onto us and then so forth.
Exactly it. And this we're in this inflection point where the observation of that, once again back to the internet, has become such a reasonable means of understanding, meaning you can obtain this information and be aware of it, that it's so great to see that we're kind of at this point where we can take this technology that we call these tool sets and really use them to benefit us in a means of wellness. And we're just, of course, we're talking about it on a small spectrum, but it's so macro. Um, and welcome to the space, guys. If you guys would like to come up and speak, I know it's not, yeah, and of course, Dazzling, if you want to do, steer to the more technology side, or Selfish, or anyone, you're more than welcome to. But we're doing like health and wellness, and we're speaking about some past tense and present tense things that occur from a health perspective that are detriments to us, our ecosystem, and our well-beings, and all of these different methodologies and tool sets that are being also enabled and generated, which are the countermeasures to those existences and the benefits from those. There was something else that you had mentioned before 808, and I'm trying to recall it now because there was three different things I wanted to say, but I only said two of them. Trying to remember right now. Give me a moment. Sorry.
That's why I say history is super important. Um, Because even mythology, some of our mythological stories are like conspiracies of their time, which was pushed heavily. I always like to share the story. Again, going back to my culture, we have a mo'olelo called, which talks about the creation of Kilauea. Speaks about Pele and Hi'iaka. Um, a lot of people think my ancestors believe in different gods and goddesses. That's totally false. They never did. They actually knew the stories of Jesus Christ and God before Western ideology stepped foot in these islands, which even some of my Kanaka pushed back to me against that. But then it's wild, but because of who brought the teachings of Pele and how they taught my people was from the Tahitians when they came over. And we have a lot of mo'olelo that talks about these things, but the mo'olelo about Hi'iaka and Pele speaks about the creation of Kilauea, which is the volcano. And there's certain name places within that area that's very prominent within the creation of a volcano, which is depicted in these stories. But because of the mythological side was pushed heavily, the actual facts within the mo'olelo wasn't getting shared, which that's what the creation of these mo'olelos was about, to share the stories and knowledge of how these things happen and were created. Which fast forward, like I was sharing with the professors at UH that were and the volcanologists that were studying the volcanoes, they're trying to find out the creation. They went back after 30 years of trying to find the creation and find what they're trying to study. They had to go back to these stories and went back to these name places, stripped back that mythological push within that story and found the scientific facts within it, and then had their own aha moment. It was like these things within a lot of our indigenous knowledge, not just within the Hawaiians, even within a lot of how things were shared, like even with the deep net people in the North America and South America, and a lot of their knowledge of how it was shared was encrypted in a way. That's what I like to say. Like even my language, say how you say one word and you chant it or you sing it or how I'm speaking regularly could mean totally different. Even how you spell it within a sentence structure, it means differently. So how you interpret it, different word structures within a language can actually diminish its actual truth and what it really means. Which I always fight against a lot of my own people when they always try to speak within my language, our ancestors' language, or try to teach it or try to share some of the knowledge because of some of the things they're sharing is false in it, and it's something that they need to really understand how prominent it is, because a lot of this knowledge is something that we need to be aware of, and really understand so we can accept the things that we already know and accept the things that we don't know to better ourselves to further innovate.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And it's like this complexity of all of this knowledge, this information that has been left over, that really has gotten us to this point, at least. Nonetheless, of if there was means of altering the ability for particular structures of information to be known throughout particular times in the way that we measure them, in these periods. Um, I couldn't agree more. And you know, it is just for us living in America, right? Native Americans, having a particular types of diet, right, and showing over a period of time too. You're right. It's a great example also of how we still living where we do geographically have and had the means to still provide a eco friendly and beneficial diet. However, unfortunately, there's been a hijacking of what I like to call the syndrome of instance of enjoyment, and through food, right, has been able to manifest itself in a very dangerous way, at least for Western civilization. Rose, at least, right, Rose, for the most part, in Europe, there's a lot of different standards, and there have been a lot of different standards for a longer period of time, and so that's very lucky in that sense. It's much healthier food in general, just from a farm to table standpoint. All of the processes that typically is taken up apart in creating boxed goods. Well, there's not many boxed goods. I mean, there are boxed goods, and
I always laugh at how some of these groups or entities use the term farm to table, because my version is literally from the ocean to my table, or literally from the ground to my table, but sometimes there's a process from farm to table. You know what I mean. But yeah.
yeah, and most people don't get that 808. It's and I'm the same way, but it is incredible because I don't know how anyone would be able to exist without it in our standing of being and being able to have this intellectual prowess that we all do, because it takes an exorbitant amount of energy, and all living creatures are by definition beings that consume, right, break down, energize, and create excrement. And that's
How
just
wild is that, yeah? Our bodies break down these different byproducts that we consume and store them to energize us, uh, create an ecosystem within ourselves to provide energy for our different parts of our body. That also builds foundations to make us even stronger. Wild. The knowledge our ancestors had to even understand the interconnectedness between different plants when you grow them together. Like I was gonna hop on to when you're talking about the D-neck people. They had growing techniques where you grow plants together to fight against different uh, insects, soil propagation, help against some plants were susceptible to too much sunlight. And some were needed more sunlight, where the tallness of a certain plant would help them get that sunlight. So wild, all these interconnectedness things that we see and talk about in our ancestors has already achieved the understanding at such a level where they were able to intermingle different species to allow them to grow even better, to even understanding how to not control the ecosystem but live in harmony with it, to where they could create structures to allow growth, not with only there for themselves, but also the ecosystem around them. It wasn't just a personal growth thing. Was a personal growth that also entailed everything else around them, which is something we don't see today. At one point, big companies really thought in a holistic way, where they really took care of their workers, bought and paid for their workers' houses for them to live on while they worked for them, and all of these things, and it's crazy to see how us as humans are pushed to the point where that's not even in a thought of uh, how we think of others and how we think of our neighbors, how we take care of them, how we help, and extending that help. Is yes, we are all our own individual selves living our own lives and our own experiences, going through our own problems. But yet we still all live here in this place we call Earth, and in this place we call home. And to have a better quality of life, is something that needs to be taken upon as a collective.
Don't lie to them, 808. Nope. No one is their own self. No. Yeah, you couldn't be more right. Right. These perceived notions, these identities that we all hold, yeah, very very significant in the understanding of the proportion of where the collective is and can go, and furthering that bondedness in which that the integral information in which creates benefits, not dependencies, is what is utilized and is the prominent means of the incentive behind interactions, as you were kind of insinuating before. And I really think that's the utopian society that, as a utopia to me at least, that I'd like to see in my lifetime.
Like there's a huge problem with food shortages when there should have never been none. Um, this is something else I also like to use to share when I'm teaching about how ancestral knowledge that diminished kind of brings forth problems we see today, which shouldn't be like food shortage. Like before Westerners stepped foot here, their Spanish conquistadors books that even in their journals spoke of when they landed here, of how prominent the the agriculture here was, where they were able to feed millions of people here living in the middle of the ocean, are surrounded by salt water. They're able to produce food that was able to feed not just their population that was growing, but also feed these sailors that came from these ships that came from overseas. Not just them, a lot of them. We have accounts that goes back to 1100s, 1400s, to the Russians, Chinese, to a lot of these people that came here and was very enamored by the power of the agricultural progress here. But it wasn't just the agricultural progress; it was the navigational tools, was so much that bred life. Even when they set foot in the Americas, the knowledge of the indigenous people there, they're enamored men, and it's crazy. Um, Even some things that we see today that's being taught by many others from different walks of life. You see the understanding of karma, these different energies within yourself, chakras, mana. Mana is the same thing, it's power within us that's all around us. We cultivated ourselves. The experience we go through every day cultivates our own mana that we set forth and push into this world. And it's crazy. It's yeah, it's life. So much things that problems are created from the diminishing of our ancestors' knowledge, and we see a lot of sharing of more modern takes of things that was achieved before. That's kind of pushing forth ridiculous kinds of focus in areas that doesn't need to, there's no need of.
You reminded me what one of the things that I wanted to say earlier. So I'm thankful, when you spoke about the Egyptians and their irrigation systems. Something that was still to this day, is blows engineers' minds, right? Such a marvel, and that was such a significant period of time ago. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Um, and I missed a little bit of what you were saying there. I don't know if it was breaking up for everyone or it was just me.
The power they had and the understanding of how to use water was so wild, not just for their use of irrigating their crops. They use it for running water within their whole city systems and even more for building techniques, which is it's crazy. Even yeah, creation of aqueducts, yeah, the knowledge they have and the knowledge we have with the combinations with the technology we have, it's crazy to think to see where we're at today, where we're still dumbfounded by how our ancients built their cities and how they understood a lot of these different things, even within in the cosmos. You know, for a very long time, people didn't really want to believe that my ancestors were able to navigate using the stars. But then the creation of Hokulea led them and pushed them and had no, because there was no like facts to kind of show that it to be true until Hokulea came and those and that founding and traverse through the Pacific using the ancient techniques really proved that it can be done, which they still use today as a way to show that it is still possible. Which is I love it. You guys should look read into that the story of the Hokulea.
Yeah, I could, and I love what you say as always. Be, you know, this defining factor of. I also posted something up top that kind of speaks to it, right? These platonic solids, these universal geometrical shapes that we find uh, through symmetries of these vector space of interactions and this complexity of therefore after those interactions, right, makes the world up the way it is, and existence the way that we perceive it to be. And so yeah, so significant having ancestral information that really strikes to the heart of the sociological issues that we have still today. And so I think that's it's going to play a huge role in the means of the where technology is taking us, the change that it's going to drive, and from that the sociological complexity in which that takes manifests in itself in place of this new adaptation of this patterned change, which becomes habits.
What's cool is we've seen some things kind of change over the years. Kind of pushed super drastically. Um, well, we see that with a lot of things. But sustainable living, is something that has never been very important on a macro scale. Now is where like I always share where I'm from, sustainable living has been something that is ingrained with us. But now we see it on a macro scale where techniques are being rediscovered. Um, Things are being done to kind of revamp a lot of other initiatives to help be more sustainable. Look, policies are being put in place to make sure companies are being sustainable and not dumping waste into our streams or into our waters, stuff like that. Um, Technology is being and software is being created to kind of help monitor and streamline doing in the business wise is long, and we see a revamp and a reconstruction even in that era being more on a macro scale to even DLNR, which is our Department of Land and Natural Resources, which even them is being more knowledgeable of understanding our reefs and ecosystems here in the islands. That's helping to create a better way um, to to make sure people are being held accountable for sustainable fishing. But more so not on the people who I'm gonna say more on the commercial side, because the commercial side is the ones that are more how can I say it?
Adversarial.
Violation. Yeah, there are more in violations than of what the smaller guys is. Even though the smaller guys is part of a big problem too, but the bigger problem is catching the ones that really kind of get away and goes around the law a lot. But it's been a revamp, and there's been a big push on a macro scale with all of these things. But yeah, that's just one side of it that we see a mix between ancestral knowledge coming forward, technology now, and modern science and modern technology, and all of these things commingling to support and build a better foundation which is interesting because we see even renewable energies using the rivers, the continuous motions and stuff like that. It's interesting.
Yeah, back to the continuous motion, how you were speaking before, or how we were speaking before about, how like all living things are classified under this structure of 808 dropped of either uh, um, being consumed, consuming, or generating energy from consuming and creating excrement. And so, this like this process that, not even from where we could talk about like this macro view of go to like the sociologically of our entire species, the macro view of the way that the economics works. And I thought, to myself too, right, there's even this macro view of even if you look at just our earth itself and the solar system, and even in that particular macro view, you kind of see this geometric representation of the symmetry of relations between these pattern states in the same kind of effort, right, that we see of like right, breathing, the contrast of in and out, this this fluid like motion that creates inertia, and through this inertia breakdown, right, and entropy creates energy, in which the manifestation, the realization of it that we witness in our reality. And so it's the understanding of that and that complexity becoming such a grasping point for us in our species is, the exponential growth. And I can't overstate it enough. I know we speak about it all the time, and this is a really cool health and wellness episode. Is pretty much just me and you, 808. We
This
spoke,
this
spoke
this is
wellness.
like health
Sorry,
and wellness, but a whole bunch of other things.
yeah, right, because we didn't speak directly to any particular pattern structures of like diets or anything like that, and I'm glad we didn't, right, because everybody is different, and those are more holistic specialty approaches. But the whole macro structure about why health and wellness is going to be so important for our species going forward in the short term already is already always has been, but the awareness of that structure finally going to be taken hold, and a large portion of it being something that maybe was a forced hand in which pushed a particular geological assessment of individuals into a generational position where we need to use technology and these efficiencies and tools to create a beneficial means of this,
Our
whether
medical
it's organic
industry.
or mega-organic life that we exist in. Sorry, go ahead.
The medical industry is a prime example of what we just spoke about, how a hand forcibly pushed generations and people on a macro level to use certain things as more as a synthetic, where on which we have facts about, we have history that shows that. Well, which is interesting because we are using technology today to kind of better our standings on even that perspective, but which we are seeing even on a macro level, people going back to the natural way of doing things. Even when you're taking medicine, that's why I always say medicine is our food, and what we eat also helps our ecosystem within us to have a stronger foundation to naturally build these things within us to combat a lot of the sicknesses we have. Like things like drinking warm lemon and honey to help with congestion. Is you don't have to go to over the counter medicine, where you can just teaspoon of honey a day with warm lemon. Perfect, good, works even better. Soothes your throat. The antioxidants within the honey also helps combats a lot of that. You have sickness. The lemon helps break down the mucus. So much, even adding other natural products to it, like lemongrass and other things that help with tea. That's why you think a lot of the Asians drink plenty different types of teas. They all have different health benefits, and they understood the things we eat is what helps us stay healthy. helps us create the foundation we need in ourselves, like I was saying, to combat a lot of these sicknesses, where the push for the synthetic side really diminished a lot of that understanding and awareness and knowledge, where we're seeing it come back, making it come back. Like I like to share with the plant that we grow all the time, which is taro, which is a starchy substance, can made into poi, you can bake, you can do all kinds, but the whole plant itself can be consumed. But we don't consume the stem, because the stem part is what we can regrow, and it's something that can always regrow and regrow. But it's very super healthy. It's built with a lot of anti-cancerous enzymes. Also helps breaks down these proteins that kind of protects tumors, to where we don't have that apoptosis that happens within us, um, to happen, which is a natural occurring thing with us, that destroys dead cells or destroys cancerous tumorous cells. Then that's something that naturally occurs in us, and certain foods we eat actually helps promote that process to happen and occur, which we have things that don't help it to occur, that helps these tumors grow more inside us. Because why? The foundation within our bodies are so stripped away from actually having that foundation of what was built upon our ancestors, and a lot of the generational things that we went through is so diminished now, to where we need technology, we need a lot of these different things that was created to kind of help us relearn these things. Which is crazy, it's wild. But we see the truths and facts and things that come out of how it is very important, to really go back to those understanding and awareness of these different things that we our ancestors had, and the understanding of it, to kind of help us be more healthier, and to be able to further, without having our own healthy bodies, how can we think to even further innovate or build or create all of these different things that we can? It's wild.
And with that, I think we'll close up. Unless there's anything else, 808, that you want to say, or anybody in the audience wants to pop up and make a comment or anything. This was a It was a fun space though, 808. I really had fun. Me and you went back and forth, talking in a macro point of view about this stuff, and I can't thank you enough for coming up, speaking, hanging out. Because if not, it would have been 45 minutes of me just speaking about my own personal opinions on health and wellness. And like you said, right? Like not all lactic acids are equal, right? And where you get the portion of vitamins, nutrients, the minerals, whatever means of substance you're intertaking for your body to use as a beneficial substance. Very important where it's also sourced and how it's handled during that source. So I could not agree more, man. But I think Crypto Green Space is going to be up in a couple minutes, so I'm going to hop over to there. And then at 6 p.m., we got the XRP Cafe space, which is the best NFT marketplace on the XRP ledger, and all ledgers. Um,
Like I said, they've been around, and I like to see these growths within these different projects, and also seeing, there's things that of course I don't agree with a lot of these different projects, but the growth within the ecosystem itself, is I love to see it, because like that's how these things, well, that's how we see growth happen, where people take things, build things, break things, and find things to kind of fix it. But having, yeah, which I love it. I just love seeing people build, people grow, and seeing the growth from where vet guys. I remember talking with vet guys a long time ago, before even the cafe thing was created, before his mushroom head was created, and to see from where they came to now is, I love it. Just like even seeing Dazzling doing his thing, seeing Shell doing her thing, and then a lot of bunch of other people that don't really speak about the things they build. It's amazing. Um, not even within the own XRPL community. I'm talking about just in general on a macro level, how much growth it has in a lot of these ecosystems, where people are just way too focused on price and really should look on the growth of the utilization and the building around how all of these things are being expanded upon and more interconnected in many of different ways. It's amazing. I love it. But yeah, thank you for letting me speak again. But always, I love your spaces. Hello, everybody.
Aloha, brother. And as always, thank you for coming, man. It was a fun space, and we won't be back this Thursday. Actually, Thursday this week, I'm going to be on a hosted space with Chris and Weetie, and Weetie is going to be speaking about some new ventures. Of course, I haven't asked any questions. I wanted to be uh, as unknowing as possible going into the conversation. But we're going to be talking about sustainability on the XRP ledger, and I think there's some possibly new changes that is going on with something that he has, planned.
Look
So
at that word making its rounds all over the place. Sustainability. I love it.
you know it, man. So I say, 2024 is the year of sustainability and collaboration. Aloha, man. Love you guys. Hope everyone has a great rest of the night, great rest of the week, and look forward to seeing everyone later on.